Welcome to Stoic Flame channel.
Have you ever woken up, expecting the universe to be your personal genie, ready to grant your every wish, only to discover that reality has its own intricate, often unpredictable plans? It's a common human experience, this collision between our desires and life's stubborn independence. In a world relentlessly obsessed with chasing perfection, from flawless bodies and uninterrupted career success to ideal friendships and eternal youth, we often find ourselves caught in a cycle of disappointment, frustration, and ceaseless striving. But what if there was another way? What if the secret to genuine contentment wasn't in relentlessly pursuing an elusive ideal, but in finding profound peace exactly where you are? This article delves into the timeless wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor whose personal reflections, famously known as meditations, offer a radical perspective on living. Far from advising us to desperately want flawless days, ideal friends, or unending youth, Marcus Aurelius and the Stoic philosophy he embodied teach us to embrace life just as it unfolds. This isn't about passive resignation, it's about swapping endless wishing for a resilient smile that genuinely says, "I'm ready for whatever comes." Acceptance, in this context, becomes our most powerful weapon against disappointment. It allows us to face fate with all its unexpected twists and frustrating potholes, to laugh at life's little surprises, and to grow immeasurably stronger through every challenge we encounter. If you're tired of battling the current and are ready to start gracefully riding the waves of existence with humor and profound inner peace, you're embarking on a journey to transform your struggles into deep, abiding wisdom. 1. Accepting other people, the art of unshakable composure. Imagine you're immersed in the warmth of a dinner party, savoring good food and stimulating conversation, when suddenly a pointed insult slices through the air, directed squarely at you. Perhaps it's a passive-aggressive jab about your career choices, a thinly veiled criticism of your appearance, or even a cutting remark about something deeply personal concerning your family. The room holds its breath, a collective glance shifts your way, everyone silently curious to witness your reaction. Your pulse quickens, a familiar heat rising. Do you snap back with a sharp, witty retort? Do you force an awkward laugh, hoping to diffuse the tension? Or do you find yourself simmering in quiet, internal rage, replaying the moment endlessly? This is a critical juncture, a moment ripe for a Stoic lesson. How would a practitioner of Stoicism navigate such an encounter? Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, offers profound guidance. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. What does this powerful statement truly mean in such a context? It means that the insult itself, the specific words or tone, holds no inherent power over your inner state. It is merely a collection of sounds, vibrations in the air. Its capacity to wound you, to disrupt your peace, exists only if you grant it that permission. Think of an insult as a package delivered to your front door. You are the recipient, but critically, you are not obligated to sign for it. You don't have to accept it. The moment you decide to refuse that package, to prevent the insult from penetrating your inner tranquility, the power dynamic irrevocably shifts. Suddenly, the person who sought to humiliate you appears rather foolish, their attempt rendered impotent. Let's shift the scenario from a dinner party to the open road. Picture yourself driving, when a reckless driver suddenly swerves dangerously in front of you, blares their horn aggressively, and then, with an infuriating flourish, flips you off. What's the common, almost instinctual, reaction? Fury. Your grip tightens on the steering wheel, your heart pounds a frantic rhythm, and a primal urge tempts you to accelerate, to pursue them, to teach them a lesson. But consider the aftermath. You become angrier, your stress hormones surge, and you risk escalating into a pointless road rage incident. And for what? The irresponsible actions of a complete stranger. A Stoic would view this situation through an entirely different lens. Their internal monologue might resemble this: "This person's anger is their burden, not mine. Their actions are outside my control, but my reaction, that is entirely within my power to govern." Instead of allowing rage to hijack their composure, a Stoic would simply take a deep breath, allow the moment to pass, and continue their journey with a peaceful mind. The world, after all, is a chaotic tapestry woven with countless insults, provocations, and moments of sheer unpredictability. People are sometimes ignorant, others are overtly cruel, and many are simply grappling with their own difficult day. But, as Marcus Aurelius wisely noted, if someone speaks ill of you, you should never compound the problem by adding your own condemnation. This means refusing to take an insult and multiply its impact by reacting with your own anger or sadness. That, he implies, would be akin to being struck by a single punch and then deliberately punching yourself 10 more times. So, what are the most effective Stoic responses to these common provocations? Humor. This is a potent tool in the Stoic arsenal, cherished for its ability to neutralize tension and disarm an aggressor. Imagine a colleague mocks your latest project, sneering, "Oh wow, looks like you're really going places," in reverse. Instead of a sharp retort, you might smile genuinely and reply, "I know, right? I figured everyone else was going forward, and I wanted to be original." The tension dissipates, and your calm, witty response leaves them with nowhere to go. Or consider a relative at a family gathering who, upon seeing your new, bold haircut, exclaims, "What on earth did you do to your hair? It looks like a bird's nest." Instead of recoiling, you might playfully ruffle your hair and respond, "You know, I was going for effortless chic, but bird's nest has a certain wild charm, too. Maybe I'll start charging for rent." Your lightheartedness deflects their negativity and prevents a potential argument. Silence. Seneca, another esteemed Stoic philosopher, sagely advised that sometimes the most profoundly powerful response to an insult is simply no response at all. Just letting the offensive words hang in the air, unacknowledged, sends a clear message: the insult is beneath you, it doesn't warrant your engagement. This isn't a silent fuming, but a deliberate act of non-engagement, demonstrating that their words hold no weight in your world. For instance, a neighbor might shout a baseless accusation about your garden, but instead of engaging in a shouting match, you simply maintain eye contact calmly for a moment. Then turn and continue tending your plants. Your quiet dignity speaks volumes. Genuine indifference. This is the ultimate Stoic response, far beyond mere fake composure while seething internally. It's a deep, authentic, unshakable indifference that arises from a profound understanding. When someone hurls an insult, their words are primarily a reflection of them, not of you. They are, in essence, exposing their own insecurities, their bitterness, their skewed worldview. When you cultivate this mastery, your life becomes immeasurably more peaceful. You cease wasting precious energy trying to control what others say or do. You stop being emotionally hijacked by rude strangers, toxic coworkers, or family members who expertly push your buttons. Instead, that liberated energy can be channeled into pursuits that genuinely matter: your meaningful work, your personal growth, and your enduring happiness. Imagine a demanding boss who constantly nitpicks your work, even when it's excellent, their criticism stemming from their own anxiety. Instead of taking each comment to heart and feeling personally attacked, you view their behavior as a manifestation of their stress, process their feedback objectively for anything useful. and then genuinely detach from the emotional charge of their words. You simply acknowledge, this is their struggle, not mine, and move on. And here lies a remarkable paradox. When you genuinely stop reacting to insults, something transformative happens. People begin to respect you more. They observe that you are not easily rattled, that you possess an inner strength and composure that they cannot shake. This is why, with a beautiful irony, the less you desperately fight for respect, the more effortlessly you command it. It becomes evident that you don't need to prove your worth to anyone. So, the next time someone attempts to throw an insult your way, try this powerful Stoic practice. Pause. Take a deep, centering breath. Ask yourself, with genuine curiosity, does this really affect me? And then, with a quiet, knowing smile that radiates inner peace, simply move on. Because the ultimate power move is not about proving your worth to others, it's about intrinsically knowing you never had to in the first place. If you're still on this ride, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe before we jump into the next section. It really motivates us to keep making more videos. Let's move on. 2. Accepting transience, the beauty of life's fleeting dance. There's a poignant story about a man who, with meticulous care and incredible artistry, constructed a magnificent sandcastle on the beach. He carved intricate windows, towering turrets, and even dug a delicate moat, carefully filling it with seawater. Passers-by paused, captivated, marveling at the sheer effort and exquisite detail of his creation. But then, as the relentless tide began its inevitable roll inward, wave after wave crashed against the castle, erasing hours of dedicated work in mere seconds. Yet, the man did not panic. He didn't scream at the indifferent ocean or frantically attempt to build a wall to defy the incoming waves. Instead, he simply watched, a serene smile gracing his lips, then turned and walked away, as if he had anticipated this outcome all along. He understood, from the very moment he began building, that the tide would eventually claim his castle, and yet, he built it anyway. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, would have profoundly appreciated the wisdom embedded in this simple act. He frequently contemplated the profound truth of how everything people, grand empires, even the most monumental human achievements are ultimately destined to fade into nothingness. He viewed life itself much like that sandcastle, exquisitely beautiful, incredibly intricate, and entirely, beautifully temporary. He wrote extensively about how even the most powerful figures in human history, those who once commanded vast armies and ruled sprawling nations, are now mere names in history books. He cited examples like Alexander the Great, a conqueror who famously wept because there were no more worlds left to conquer. And yet, what tangible legacy remains of him now? Perhaps a statue, a few stories passed down through the generations, their details increasingly blurred by time. Consider the fate of the greatest warriors, the most brilliant philosophers, the most revered kings. All have eventually been reduced to dust. Their once vibrant existence diffused into the vastness of history. It is incredibly easy to confront this universal truth and feel a profound sense of despair. After all, if everything ultimately fades, if even the most remarkable people and their indelible achievements are eventually swallowed by oblivion, what truly is the point? Why bother striving for success? Why chase ambitious dreams? Why even bother doing anything at all? But this is precisely where the true brilliance of Stoicism shines through with illuminating clarity. It does not instruct us to succumb to despair, quite the opposite. It compels us to embrace this truth, to perceive it not as a limitation that suffocates us, but as a profound liberation that sets us free. Ponder this for a moment. A significant portion of our daily anxiety, Our persistent stress stems directly from our tenacious clinging to things as if they are destined to last forever. We agonize over our careers, we obsess endlessly about what others might think of us, we wrestle with the weight of making the right choices. But what if we were to truly, deeply accept that none of these external phenomena are permanent? What if we understood that, in the vast, cosmic scheme of things, all the minuscule embarrassments, the perceived failures, and the harsh judgments we so deeply fear are nothing more than transient waves gently lapping at the shore? This profound realization does not render life meaningless, it miraculously makes it lighter. It strips away the immense pressure to be perfect, to be eternally remembered, to be anything other than fully present in this very moment. Let's contextualize this with a modern example. Think about the pervasive influence of social media. Millions obsess over likes, shares, and comments, desperately curating an idealized online persona designed to impress an unseen audience. They meticulously craft their lives, selecting only the most flattering angles, portraying only the happiest moments, showcasing only the most impressive achievements. Yet, if you scroll back far enough, you'll inevitably encounter posts from years past that no one cares about anymore. A once trending topic quickly fades into obscurity, a viral moment swiftly replaced by the next fleeting sensation. Even celebrities, who appear larger than life and possess seemingly boundless influence, are ultimately overshadowed by the relentless emergence of the next big thing. If people truly grasped how swiftly they, and their meticulously crafted digital images, would be superseded and forgotten, would they still invest so much emotional energy stressing about public perception? Would they continue to tether their fragile happiness to something so inherently fleeting? Consider the feverish excitement surrounding a new gadget release. People line up for hours, obsess over specifications, and spend exorbitant amounts of money. Yet, within months, a newer, faster model arrives, and the previous must-have becomes just another outdated device, its once coveted status evaporating. Or think of the relentless pursuit of fashion trends. A particular style dominates for a season, only to be deemed out and replaced by another, demonstrating the rapid turnover of what we consider desirable. Marcus Aurelius profoundly understood this dynamic. He wrote eloquently about how even the thunderous applause of the crowd is a temporary phenomenon, how the very people who praise you today will, in short order, forget you. He famously compared human lives to the leaves on a tree. They bud and grow in the spring, gracefully fall in the autumn, and are then replaced by a fresh crop of new ones year after year. It is undoubtedly a sobering thought, but it is also an incredibly liberating one. Because if nothing lasts, then ultimately, nothing is truly worth a necessary worry. If reputation, fleeting success, and transient material possessions are all destined to fade, why squander your precious time being consumed by them? Instead, why not redirect your focus to what genuinely matters, living a life of virtue, treating others with profound kindness, and making the absolute most of the present moment you inhabit? And this leads us to another absolutely crucial insight derived from the understanding of transience. Because life is inherently short, there is simply no time to waste. Reflect on the countless individuals who indefinitely postpone their most cherished dreams, perpetually telling themselves, "Someday, I'll start that novel. Someday, I'll embark on that epic journey. Someday, I'll tell that person exactly how much they mean to me." But here's the harsh, undeniable truth: someday very rarely, if ever, arrives. The future remains perpetually a concept, an abstract idea that recedes further away the more desperately we chase it. Marcus Aurelius offered a profound reminder that each of us lives only now, this brief instant. The rest has been lived already or is impossible to see. Life is not patiently waiting for tomorrow. It is not holding its breath for some elusive perfect moment. Life is happening right now. Yet, an overwhelming number of us conduct our lives as if we possess an unlimited, inexhaustible supply of time. We scroll aimlessly on our phones for hours. We remain trapped in jobs we despise. We stubbornly cling to grudges, and we constantly postpone the act of truly living fully. But if we were to truly grasp the profound reality of how temporary everything truly is, wouldn't our actions shift dramatically? Wouldn't we become bolder, kinder, more intensely present? Wouldn't we stop fixating on the trivial small stuff and instead direct our unwavering focus toward what genuinely counts? This is precisely where Stoicism offers its powerful, transformative shift in perspective. Instead of succumbing to fear regarding the impermanence of life, we are empowered to harness it as potent fuel. The very fact that nothing lasts provides us with the ultimate, compelling reason to make the absolute most of today. Not in a reckless, impulsive live like there's no tomorrow kind of way, but with profound intention, with a deep awareness that time is an incredibly precious commodity, and that how we choose to utilize it truly matters. This is the essence of what Stoicism asks of us, to be fully present where we are, to cease chasing the illusion of permanence, and to embrace, with open arms, the inherent beauty of transience itself. Because, in the end, we are all engaged in the act of building sandcastles. No matter how robust, how intricately detailed, how majestically grand they may be, the tide will eventually claim them. But that undeniable fact does not diminish the value of building them. On the contrary, it means we should wholeheartedly enjoy the creative process, understanding that the deepest joy is not found in making something last forever, but in the privilege of having been a part of it at all. 3. Accepting misfortune, cultivating unshakable resilience. Life, with its often mischievous sense of humor, possesses an uncanny knack for completely disregarding our personal preferences. You can ardently wish, tirelessly pray, or even throw a full-blown tantrum for things to unfold precisely as you desire, but reality remains deaf to such complaints and moved by our frustrations. The stark truth is, no one, absolutely no one, manages to escape adversity. This holds true for the incredibly wealthy, the immensely powerful, and even those who seem to have meticulously mastered the art of planning every intricate detail of their lives. At some unpredictable point, an event will occur that serves as a powerful, undeniable reminder of just how little control you genuinely possess. Consider the compelling case of James, a dedicated father of two who had spent years assiduously building a comfortable, stable life for his family. He meticulously adhered to the rules, consistently worked overtime, diligently saved his earnings, and made every responsible choice he could. He even committed to regular exercise and a healthy diet, believing he was stacking the odds firmly in his favor. But then, utterly out of the blue, a sudden company restructuring left him without a job. One moment, he was diligently reviewing budget forecasts for the next quarter. The very next, he found himself holding a terse severance letter. To compound this devastating blow, just as he was desperately scrambling to secure new employment, his doctor delivered yet another shattering piece of news, an unexpected medical condition that would necessitate extensive and costly treatment. The carefully constructed illusion of control shattered into a million pieces. The stability he had so painstakingly labored to build seemed to evaporate in an instant, leaving him adrift. Initially, James reacted precisely as most people would. He vehemently fought against the harsh new reality. He lay awake at night, replaying the traumatic layoff scenario endlessly in his mind, obsessively dissecting every detail, wondering if there was anything at all, he could have done differently to avert it. He lashed out, blaming his former employer, the volatile economy, or simply bad luck. His prayers were not for inner strength to face his challenges, but desperate pleas for the past to be undone, for time to rewind to a happier moment. And when those pleas went unanswered, a deep, pervasive bitterness began to fester within him. Life, he concluded, was profoundly and forgivably unfair. But what was the true source of his profound suffering? Was it solely the loss of his job and the onset of his illness, or was it, more fundamentally, his profound inability to accept that things were no longer unfolding according to his carefully laid plan? Marcus Aurelius, the discerning Stoic emperor, would have immediately recognized the precise nature of James's struggle. He possessed the deep insight that the vast majority of our suffering does not originate from external events themselves, but from our internal resistance to them. His timeless axiom resonates powerfully here: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. This fundamental principle forms the bedrock of Stoicism's dichotomy of control. Some things, it teaches, are definitively within our power, while many others are unequivocally not. The most direct and efficient path to self-inflicted misery, according to Stoic thought, is to squander all your precious energy worrying and agonizing over things you cannot possibly change, while simultaneously neglecting the very few things you absolutely can influence. Fortunately, James had a wise friend, an old mentor who had navigated his own considerable share of life's hardships. One evening, after patiently listening to James pour out his heart, lamenting how terribly unfair life had become, the mentor simply posed a profound, yet deceptively simple question: what's the most useful thing you can do right now? At first, James's instinct was to argue, to defend his victimhood. He wanted to loudly declare that life had dealt him an irrevocably bad hand, that he was utterly undeserving of such misfortune. But then, something profound clicked within him. He realized, with a sudden, startling clarity, that he had been so consumed by his resentment towards his misfortune that he had done absolutely nothing practical to actually deal with it. Inspired by this pivotal question, James consciously decided to shift his entire focus. He recognized he couldn't miraculously undo the layoff, but he could certainly dedicate himself to sharpening his professional skills, actively reaching out to his expansive network, and diligently seeking out new employment opportunities. He understood he couldn't magically cure his medical condition overnight, but he could absolutely educate himself comprehensively on available treatment options and meticulously take control of his diet habits to improve his overall health and well-being. Instead of praying desperately for life to magically restore his old, comfortable stability, he began to pray for the resilience to build a brand new one, stronger and more adaptable than before. This fundamental shift in mindset is precisely the transformative approach that Marcus Aurelius so earnestly preached. It involves ceasing to hope for a world devoid of problems and instead dedicating oneself to developing the inner strength necessary to handle them when they inevitably rise. Instead of pleading, "Please don't let me get fired," the Stoic approach suggests praying, "Grant me the strength and wisdom to handle it if I do get fired." Instead of desperately begging, "Please let this relationship last forever," one might pray, "Equip me with the strength to handle loss if it comes." Because, regardless of how intensely you might wish for a different reality, layoffs happen, relationships invariably end, and health, in its natural course, declines. The critical question is not whether you will inevitably face adversity, rather, the profound question is, will you confront it kicking and screaming in futile resistance? Or will you meet it with unshakable composure and inner power of someone who understands that, while they may not control fate, they unequivocally control themselves? James did not, of course, find another job instantaneously. His health did not miraculously recover overnight. But what profoundly changed was his outlook. By rigorously focusing solely on what remained within his sphere of control, he powerfully reclaimed his sense of agency and personal power. He came to a liberating realization: while life would perpetually throw formidable challenges his way, he possessed the inherent ability to choose his response. And in the end, that pivotal choice made all the difference. The lesson emanating from James's journey is crystalline clear: if you allow your happiness to be contingent upon external circumstances, you effectively surrender control of your inner state to the whims of fate. However, if you diligently train yourself to accept whatever unfolds and to respond with unwavering strength, even the most violent storms will fail to shake your core. This, unequivocally, is Stoicism in action, not naive wishful thinking, not blind optimism, but a profound, tangible power that emanates from within, derived from the courage to accept what is and the wisdom to act upon what can be controlled. If you're still with us, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe before we jump into the next section. It really motivates us to keep making more videos. Let's move on. 4. Accepting change, flowing with life's river. Change is, without a doubt, nature's most enduring and fascinating trick. It is omnipresent, perpetually in motion, whether we consciously acknowledge or even desire it. The seasons, with their vibrant cycles, relentlessly roll on. The tides, with their rhythmic ebb and flow, rise and fall with unwavering precision. Even the microscopic cells within your very own body are in a state of constant renewal, quietly replacing old ones with new, much like a meticulous stage crew swapping out props behind a curtain. Even when you might sincerely believe you are remaining static and touched by time, you are, in fact, in a continuous state of flux. Your physical body is not identical to what it was merely a year ago. Your thoughts, ideas, and perspectives are not carbon copies of those you held 5 years in the past. Everything inherently shifts, evolves, and transforms. And yet, despite being fundamentally built for change, our human inclination is to resist it with immense fortitude. Marcus Aurelius, the keen-eyed Stoic emperor, keenly grasped this inherent contradiction. He viewed change not as an inconvenient problem to be solved or an obstacle to be overcome, but as the very essence of life itself. He drew powerful analogies, comparing it to the intricate ways our bodies perpetually maintain themselves, constantly shedding what is no longer useful and gracefully replacing it with something fresh and new. If a single, individual part of your body could somehow possess consciousness, it might experience panic at the loss of an old cell, mourn its departure, and desperately cling to what once was. But from the holistic perspective of the entire organism, this ceaseless renewal is absolutely essential. Without it, the body would simply cease to function. The same profound truth applies to every single facet of the universe. Grand cities rise and eventually fall into ruin. Countless species emerge, flourish, and ultimately become extinct. Profound ideas are born, blossom with vibrant influence, and then, in time, become outdated, replaced by new paradigms. None of this inherent impermanence is a mistake or a flaw. It is simply the fundamental, underlying way things are. Change, according to Marcus Aurelius, is precisely what keeps the world healthy, what fundamentally drives progress, and what ultimately allows life itself to exist in its dynamic form. But here lies the fascinating, often frustrating, human irony. Despite being literally composed of change, we resist it with every fiber of our being. People desperately cling to their established routines, to their cherished possessions, to their enduring relationships, and even to their deeply ingrained identities. They harbor an intense desire for the things they hold dear to remain frozen in time, somehow immune to the relentless, inevitable flow of existence. Yet, the very change they fear is already in motion, perpetually occurring. The moment you begin to love something, it is, in that very instant, already subtly shifting, evolving, transforming into something new. You might not perceive it at first, but one day, the undeniable truth becomes strikingly obvious. The familiar neighborhood where you spent your childhood suddenly looks alien and unrecognizable. The music you once adored now sounds quaintly outdated. The person you were a mere 10 years ago feels like an utter stranger. And then, with a jolt, you realize nothing truly stays the same, no matter how fiercely you try to cling to it. Consider the illuminating case of Linda, a woman who had invested years in meticulously building her dream career, tirelessly climbing the corporate ladder in her chosen industry. She reveled in the comforting familiarity of her daily routine, the consistent recognition she received, and the profound sense of security her position afforded her. But then, one seemingly ordinary day, her company was abruptly merged with a much larger firm, and everything, literally everything, transformed overnight. New management personnel swept in, her long-standing colleagues began to depart, and Linda suddenly felt like an unwelcome guest in what was once her own professional home. She resisted this profound shift with fierce determination, incessantly complaining about how things used to be and desperately clinging to an idealized vision of how her job should have been. This relentless fight against the inevitable change only exacerbated her suffering. The more vehemently she battled the transformation, the more utterly exhausted and deeply frustrated she became. It was only when she consciously ceased resisting, when she courageously let go of the powerful illusion that things could possibly remain static, that she finally discovered a profound sense of peace. She chose to adapt, to make the absolute best of the challenging situation, and eventually, when the opportune moment arrived, she gracefully transitioned to a new opportunity that proved to be an even better fit for her. Evolving aspiration. This is the great, often overlooked, irony of life. The more desperately you try to freeze things in place, to prevent them from changing, the more profound suffering you inadvertently create for yourself. It's akin to foolishly trying to grasp flowing water in your hands, only to watch it inevitably slip through your fingers, leaving you with nothing but emptiness. Marcus Aurelius articulated this truth with disarming simplicity. We are in a river, constantly being carried forward. Which of the things around us should we cling to when none of them offer a firm foothold? If you squander your limited time and energy desperately grasping at what is already relentlessly slipping away, you will inevitably be left empty-handed, profoundly frustrated, and utterly exhausted. But if, instead, you cultivate the wisdom to learn to move gracefully with the current rather than stubbornly struggling against it, you can discover a profound and liberating sense of freedom. Consider how much precious energy countless people squander in futile resistance to change. They yearn for the return of the good old days, often failing to realize that those very days, when they were actually happening, didn't seem all that exceptionally special at the time. They dread the inevitable process of aging, failing to recognize that every single second of life is a dynamic movement toward something novel and enriching. They stubbornly cling to past versions of themselves, even when those outdated versions no longer serve their current growth or happiness. For example, a retired athlete might live in constant regret over their lost glory days, refusing to find new passions or identities beyond their sport, thus missing out on the joy of new pursuits. Or a person might continue to dress and behave as they did in college, long past their 20s, struggling to accept the natural evolution of their self-image as they mature. But what if, instead of fearfully resisting change, they wholeheartedly embraced it? What if, Instead of perpetually wishing for an impossible stability, they diligently learn to skillfully ride the waves of life's perpetual motion. This is the profound lesson that Stoicism imparts: stop expecting the world to stand still. Cease believing, with naive certainty, that things will remain precisely as they are. The cherished relationship you hold dear today may not endure forever. The successful career you have painstakingly built may take an unexpected, bewildering turn. The very sense of self you possess right now may appear utterly unrecognizable a decade from today. This is not a tragedy, it is simply nature's unfurling masterpiece at work. The solution, therefore, is not to grip tighter in desperation, it is, paradoxically, to loosen your hold. It is to allow things to simply be as they are, to permit change to happen without the exhausting burden of resistance. Because once you truly commit to this radical acceptance, something truly remarkable begins to unfold. You cease feeling like a helpless victim of life's inherent unpredictability. You stop squandering your vital energy on futile wishes that things were different. Instead, you begin to flow harmoniously with life, rather than relentlessly struggling against its current, and that, fundamentally, is where genuine peace truly resides. Not in the impossible endeavor of freezing time, not in desperately clinging to things exactly as they are, but in the profound, comforting knowledge that whatever comes next, you possess the innate capacity to adapt, to grow, and to ultimately be more than just fine. 5. Accepting your nature, the wisdom of self-alignment. Most people, at some profound juncture in their lives, inevitably stand before a mirror and experience a quiet, pervasive sense of dissatisfaction. Perhaps it's a critique of their height, the shape of their nose, or the way their hair subtly thins with age. Perhaps it delves deeper, a persistent wish that they were innately more athletic, or blessed with a quicker, more analytical mind, a yearning to fundamentally alter core aspects of their very being. This inherent human tendency to resist the reality of who and what we are is almost universal, a deeply ingrained habit. But resisting reality, in its essence, is like fruitlessly arguing with gravity. No matter how vehemently you complain, how passionately you rail against it, reality simply does not negotiate its terms. Marcus Aurelius profoundly understood this deep-seated struggle. He too faced myriad limitations, recurring physical ailments, the immense and relentless stress of governing an empire, and the ever-present, inescapable knowledge that one day, regardless of his immense power and stature, he would succumb to mortality, just like every other human being. Yet, instead of spiraling into the endless, frustrating cycle of wishing things were different, he deliberately trained himself to undertake something truly radical, to accept. And not merely to accept grudgingly, with a sigh of resignation, but to accept with a profound clarity of mind, with deep inner peace, and astonishingly, even with a sense of profound gratitude. He constantly reminded himself that he was an integral part of nature, fundamentally inseparable from its grand design. Just as a tree does not complain that it is not a river, and a wolf does not lament that it is not a bird, he too had to learn to live in profound accordance with the unique nature he had been given. This is where many people frequently find themselves stuck in a frustrating loop. There exists a peculiar paradox within human nature. We are incredibly adaptable, possessing an astonishing capacity for learning, growth, and remarkable improvement. Yet simultaneously, we are bound by inescapable limits. The core problem arises when we become fixated, almost obsessively, on the things we demonstrably cannot change, instead of wisely directing our efforts towards nurturing and working with the things we unequivocally can. For instance, someone born with a naturally analytical, introverted mind might spend years desperately trying to transform themselves into an extroverted, charismatic sales leader. fighting against their intrinsic strengths rather than embracing their natural aptitude for deep thought and strategic planning. They struggle daily, feeling inadequate when they could excel as a researcher or a brilliant problem solver. Another individual might possess incredible physical potential to become a truly exceptional dancer, but instead tortures themselves trying to master advanced mathematics, despite their brain simply not being wired for that particular kind of abstract reasoning. All too often, people chase what they perceive they lack, rather than diligently mastering and maximizing what they already possess. It's crucial to understand that self-improvement is not inherently a bad thing. The Stoics were never against the concept of growth. However, they passionately believed that growth should be directed with wisdom and discernment. Instead of engaging in a futile rebellion against our inherent nature, they sagely suggested that we align ourselves harmoniously with it. A fish, after all, does not squander its precious time envying a bird's remarkable ability to fly. Instead, it dedicates itself to perfecting its unparalleled art of swimming. A cat does not sit idly wishing it possessed the lightning speed of a cheetah. Instead, it refines its own unique, agile way of moving and hunting. The fundamental problem with humans, Stoicism highlights, is that we frequently reject this profound principle. We persistently tell ourselves that life would achieve absolute perfection if only we were taller, if only we were more effortlessly charismatic, if only we possessed a different set of inherent talents. But what if, instead of relentlessly focusing on what we perceive we lack, we chose to double down on what we already naturally have? This fundamental shift in mindset accomplishes something truly extraordinary. It liberates us from the suffocating prison of comparison. It releases us from the relentless, exhausting battle against our own intrinsic nature, and perhaps most importantly, it empowers us to fully play to our actual, authentic strengths. History is replete with countless examples of individuals who achieved greatness not because they possessed every conceivable advantage, but precisely because they masterfully worked with what they were given. Some of the most influential thinkers who forever altered the course of history were physically frail, yet possessed minds of unparalleled power. Some of the most inspiring athletes began their journeys with apparent physical disadvantage, yet they leveraged astute strategy and relentless discipline to spectacularly overcome them. What they emphatically did not do was waste their invaluable time wishing they were built differently. Think of Stephen Hawking, whose physical body was ravaged by ALS, yet his mind soared through the cosmos, reshaping our understanding of the universe. Or consider Bethany Hamilton, the surfer who lost an arm in a shark attack, yet returned to the sport, adapting her technique and continuing to compete at an elite level, embodying incredible resilience within her changed physical form. But this profound acceptance extends beyond mere skills or physical appearance. It encompasses everything that lies beyond our direct control, including fate itself. People often live under the illusion that if they resist hard enough, if they fight with sufficient vigor, they can somehow prevent undesirable events from occurring. But life, in its indifferent majesty, does not bend to our will. Whether it is the inexorable, slow passage of time that subtly alters our bodies, the inherent unpredictability of relationships, or the sheer randomness of fortune's shifts, some things are simply, undeniably, out of our hands. The more intensely we resist these inevitable truths, the more profound suffering we inflict upon ourselves. Fighting fate is an utterly exhausting, futile endeavor, akin to attempting to halt the ocean tide with your bare hands. Instead of fully immersing themselves in the present moment, instead of diligently striving to make the very best of their current reality, people often exhaust themselves in a desperate, ultimately fruitless attempt to rewrite the fundamental rules of the universe. This is precisely where the power of reason enters the Stoic framework. Unlike animals, humans possess the remarkable capacity to step back, to think critically about their own immediate reactions, and to transcend mere impulse. We are not slaves to our knee-jerk impulses. We possess the inherent power to override them with deliberate logic and considered thought. Marcus Aurelius found deep satisfaction and pleasure in maintaining a clear, unbiased mind, in not recoiling from the world's harsh realities but instead courageously meeting them head-on. He understood that the world would not always deliver what he desired. But he also held the profound conviction that he possessed the ability to consciously adjust his response to whatever circumstance arose. This singular capacity is what fundamentally differentiates us from the rest of the natural world. A lion does not pause to intellectually question its hunger, nor does a bird sit in existential crisis contemplating the temporary nature of its nest. But humans, we possess the unparalleled ability to recognize when our own primal desires and irrational fears are leading us astray. We can take a vital step back and ask ourselves, with honest introspection, is this resistance truly serving me, or is it merely plunging me deeper into misery? This is why the Stoics so emphatically emphasize the transformative power of reason. It grants us the profound ability to bypass our instinctive, knee-jerk reactions and to make conscious decisions that lead to authentic, lasting peace, rather than an endless spiral of frustration. Instead of spending our entire lives chasing ephemeral things that were never truly meant for us, we can bravely accept what fundamentally is and diligently maximize what we truly possess. Instead of squandering precious energy fearing the inevitable, be it the slow march of aging, the sting of failure, or the profound pain of loss, we can intelligently prepare for it, gracefully accept it, and even, with a profound shift in perspective, learn to embrace it. Life is not intended to be a relentless, constant battle against what is. Rather, it is meant to be lived in harmonious alignment with the fundamental nature of things, including our very own nature. This does not imply passively surrendering to every hardship or obstacle. Far from it. It unequivocally means choosing our battles with profound wisdom and strategic discernment. The arduous fight to become a better, more virtuous person. Absolutely worth it. The dedicated struggle to cultivate unwavering resilience and profound wisdom. Undeniably so. But the futile battle to become something we were never fundamentally meant to be, to embody a nature not our own. That, history clearly shows, is a war no one has ever truly won. So perhaps the true, ultimate challenge is not in miraculously changing the world, nor even in attempting to change ourselves in ways that defy our inherent nature. Instead, the real challenge lies in changing how we perceive things. The very moment we cease wishing for a different reality and courageously begin to work with the one we inherently have, life becomes remarkably lighter, more navigable, and profoundly more fulfilling. Ironically, it is within that deep, radical acceptance, rather than in relentless, exhausting resistance, that true and authentic growth spontaneously occurs. Trading wishing for wisdom. Here we are, at the culmination of this profound exploration, after delving into the complexities of our desires, our resistances, our clinging, and our fears. It all converges upon one singular, undeniably simple truth: life, in its magnificent indifference, does not care about your meticulously curated wish list. It moves relentlessly, it changes perpetually, it takes without asking, and it gives without expectation. You can choose to fight it, to desperately beg it to slow down its relentless pace, to attempt to forcefully bend it to your will. But such an endeavor is utterly futile, akin to attempting to hold back the destructive force of a hurricane with a fragile paper umbrella. The far wiser, more enlightened move. Let go. Stop wrestling with the unyielding reality of existence like an overenthusiastic toddler defiantly refusing a much-needed nap. Instead, emulate the profound wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. Accept not with a defeated sigh of resignation, but with unwavering strength and crystalline clarity. Accept not with apathetic indifference, but with profound, mindful presence. Because when you finally cease clinging to the desperate desire for everything to be fundamentally different, you suddenly begin to perceive, with astonishing clarity, what is genuinely, miraculously right there in front of you. You realize, with a profound sense of peace, that this very moment, this life you are living, imperfect, unpredictable, and challenging as it often is in its glorious entirety, enough. It always has been. Embrace the chaos, find peace in the unfolding reality, and step into the unshakable strength that comes from profound acceptance. If this video speaks to you, don't forget to subscribe now and click the playlist on your screen to unlock the treasure trove of stories, strategies, and Stoic wisdom. Let's level up together. Fuel your ambition, fortify your mind, and join me next time as we rise above all limits.